Hi, I'm Asheen Magjee. I head up commercial banking for FNB here in KZN. Regarding pricing and the complexity in entrepreneurship, I think the first thing to note is that there is increased competition, and increased competition means margins get compressed. And unfortunately, it does mean it's difficult for an entrepreneur then to try and make a profit. So to a large extent, we want to try and make sure that if it's a competitive space, there's niches and how you can try and differentiate your product so that you don't get caught in the price game. And another instance is where you've got commoditized prices, example, rice, beans, sugar, things that literally people know the price of. So you can't necessarily charge significantly different prices unless you're adding something different in terms of location, etc. Something also important to note is customers are very sensitive to price and volume. So for example, if a customer buys a large volume from you, they are going to expect a lower price. They're going to expect discounts, and also repeat customers will expect some loyalty and discount in that. So that's something to also consider as you start to do more business and regular business with the same customer. Something else to consider is import tariffs. I'm excited as to what's happening now, in particularly from a South African context, the extent to which imports are attracting tariffs, and what that does for local production is it creates opportunities for people to produce locally, to also be competitive. And we're starting to see many sectors from clothing to shoes where retail are buying local. And what that means is each and every one of us get to wear clothes that are proudly South African. And also behind that is a story about how many people get jobs. I think my last 2 points is just around, from an entrepreneur perspective, making sure that you've got accurate record of cost and selling prices, so that you can decide and calculate to what extent you're making a profit. So again, knowing your numbers is important. The thing I'm probably the most excited about is import tariffs and what that does for South African manufacture. We've seen in the last 2-3 years a shift, particularly from imported goods to locally manufactured goods. And what that does make a difference on is it means we're not necessarily competing with the cost of products from across the world. We are able to, one, support local business, but two, also make sure that our price points are realistic. And to that extent, a lot of people are starting to get jobs, and the stories behind all the clothes and shoes that we start to wear in South Africa. My last 2 points are linked, and that's really around understanding the cost and the selling price of the goods that you sell as an entrepreneur or produce. And to a large extent, you need to know those numbers well to know whether you're making a profit. So knowing your numbers is also very important. But what is it important for them to consider when it comes to pricing? I think my first point is that pricing is only one lever. I think there's other levers as a business owner that you can try and pull, and that is service. Some people like to do business with others because of the service that they offer. Innovation is also something that stands you or your business out from others. So people may be willing to pay more because they buy into the story or the promise that you're selling. Stock availability is something that we've also seen, particularly in the last couple of years, where supply chains have been disrupted. And so to that extent, if you've got stock, people will buy from you, and the right stock, obviously. I think something to also keep in mind is loyalty programs. So one of the things you most certainly want to do is have repeat customers. And the more people buy from you, the extent to which they, number one, will expect a discount, or they'll expect some benefit, whether it's a loyalty program or something that keeps them buying from you versus someone else. Something else to be conscious of, if you look at what's happening right now, you've got exchange rates that are volatile, you've got interest rates that are also fluctuating. Again, it comes back to my earlier point around really knowing your numbers to understand the cost of your products, because only then will you realize what you need to sell at to make a profit. Another thing to consider in terms of rising costs, we've got things like electricity costs, we've got increasing security costs, data costs, also labor costs. All of these costs factor into what cost of the goods are and how much we end up selling it for. I think it's also important to identify how much of your costs are fixed versus variable, And to that extent, you want to recover your fixed costs, but then after that, start really pushing volume, because every bit of sale that you do thereafter is incremental profit that you make. I think the last thing to just highlight is just to be conscious of market trends. And I think if you look at what happens from an economics perspective and you look at demand and supply, it's one thing you wanting to sell your good at 20 Rand, but people are only willing to pay 10 and 15 Rand. So to that extent, you won't be selling as much. So the extent to which the price you sell is close to what customers want to pay and it allows you to make a profit, that's the perfect scenario. So FNB is definitely supportive in many ways. One of the first ways from a Fundaba perspective is on app. There are lots of courses that are online and can help you start, run, and grow your business. So this is kind of like an online coach that can really help you along the way. And there's various modules that take you through as you start unpacking your business. I think it's important to know when you're in business to balance pricing and profit. So there's a famous saying that goes, profit is vanity, but cash flow is sanity. And what that means is you could spend a lot of time working out how much of profit you make, but if you haven't collected your money, and let's say you're selling on credits and some of it you recover a long time from now, some you possibly may not recover, all of that effort doesn't necessarily translate into cash flow. So that's why I'm suggesting that profit focus is one thing, but also trying to make sure how quickly you can turn your activities back into cash and recycle it. It's just as important. And so FNB certainly helps from a cash flow management perspective. There's tools on app to try and help you manage your cash flow forecast for the month. If you're an importer or an exporter, even small business, there's very cost-effective online platforms to help you trade in Forex and buy and sell and bring your goods here as cost-effectively as possible. And last but not least, I'm probably most excited about this. We've launched NAV Marketplace, which is on the FNB app. And the idea behind that is to allow small businesses to promote their activities and to start dealing with other FNB customers of ours. So I'm very excited about that because number one, it reduces your cost of advertising. But two, over time, you start building relationships with other FNB customers. And the idea behind this is to promote small business and to allow people to connect with each other.